Good evening. Welcome to COVID Conversations with me, Carvin Goldstone. Also on skyroomlive.co.za. Well, it's episode 11 in this format, and I must say it's been quite eye-opening and educational to listen to so many different speakers. Today is going to be a bit different. We have a lot of speakers because the topic we're discussing is important to a lot of people, and that's going back to school. Are you feeling a bit anxious like I am? I'm feeling a bit anxious. I'm not sure how this turns out, and I don't think there's an answer out there for us at this point. There is a bit of data that suggests that maybe going back to school is not such a good idea, and others that suggest it is a good idea. We're going to discuss this with a few professionals just after this piece. So while else guests get ready to come back in, I'm going to ask you to listen to my good friend Prince with some COVID comedy.
You know, the thing with the coronavirus is the more you warn people about it, they just don't listen. They just don't listen until it's too late. It's a classical case of Chucky. Have you guys ever watched Chucky? Throughout the whole movie, people are warning everybody about Chucky. Mommy, Chucky taught me how to swear. I was like, no, baby, Chucky can't swear. Chucky is just a doll. And you know, Chucky, like the coronavirus, it just plays along. Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play? Hi, I'm Chucky. You can tell her anything. Mommy, Chucky said he's gonna kill someone. No, baby, Chucky is just a doll. He can't. Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play? The whole time that's what happens until it's too late. One day you're in the shower washing yourself. You turn around, there's Chucky with a knife. What up, bitch? Stabbing people. They bleeding blood on the floor. That is Chucky. He doesn't wanna play. He wants to kill you. Nyeko.
Welcome back. So with me, I have a panel of professionals and ordinary parents too. I'm just going to go around the screen so you can see I have Dr. Spusiso Kubeka, who's a pediatrician, is also specializing in infectious diseases at the moment, working towards that. Sohail Issa, who's a general practitioner working in the South African health system. Craig Caldwell, who's a parent of 4, and he's going to discuss with us from his perspective. Candace Smale, who's also a parent. Elton Moore, who's a high school matric teacher. So from the panel, I just want to get a feeling. I'm going to start with you, Craig. Parents all around, some of us on this panel are parents, including myself. What is your feeling as a parent about your kids returning back to school, even though it seems as if infections are still going up?
Calvin, hi. Look, just for background, I'm in the UK at the moment, and my wife is in South Africa with the kids. We've got a situation. We've got 4 children. We've got one in grade 8, one in grade 6. We've got a child in creche, and we've got a child that's got special needs. Grade 8 apparently is only going back in September. Grade 6 is only going back on the 15th of June. Creche, we haven't got any definitive answers yet, and there's nothing on special needs. Apparently, the grade 8 and the grade 6s are only going to go back 1 day a week. Now, we've been told that we can also just rather carry on with the homeschooling. I just don't see the point of sending my children back to school for 1 day a week when I can educate them at home for the other 4. So I'd rather just that they stay home for 5 days a week. We are waiting for visas that the kids can fly out to the UK. I'm not going to put them at risk and send them to school. Even if it's 1 day a week. I just don't see the point. Yeah, it is a huge thing. The infections are rising. I don't think it's safe.
Okay, so interestingly, Craig, I'm one of those parents who's probably going to send my son back to school, and it'll be as soon as next week or the week after. Candace, can you hear me? No. Okay, let me just speak to Elton. Elton is a matric teacher. Elton, you're just hearing there from Craig some of his concerns. As someone who works in education, you are probably in the firing line in the beginning because the matrics are the ones that go back first. So you'll be right in the thick of things. How do you feel, just as not as a school teacher necessarily, but as a person, as a South African, about your own well-being? How are you feeling right now about this?
Good evening. I have been involved with preparation on management level at my school, with preparation in terms of returning to school and going back to education. Obviously, over the past 8 or 9 weeks, we've had this debate: do we return or don't we? And as we know, we've got mixed signals across the board, and one has to listen to all people's interpretations regarding the return to school. In terms of how much we can only do what we know is possible right now. And that's exactly what we are going to do, Mr. Goldstone. We are screening every child prior to their entrance into the school building. If they do not pass a temperature test, if I may colloquially refer to it as that, they will be isolated, obviously with social distancing, and their parents will be called to come and fetch them. If you pass, you enter into the school premises and you don't huddle around, you go straight to your venue where you're allocated teaching. We no longer are going to do morning and afternoon registrations. And I think the easiest way for parents to try and visualize the drastic change really from the status quo of regulation is that it's as close to varsity style of education as possible. You go when you have classes and you can leave when your classes are over. I'm a part of management, and obviously we've spent, I can't give much more than that, but we've spent close to 5 hours in the last 2 weeks discussing procedures in place to protect not just students, but also teachers. Because as Mr. Caldwell said, the numbers are spiking. I mean, that's the truth. We can't neglect facts. We only can do what we know at the moment, and that is social distancing, having a mask or visor, and washing our hands as regularly as possible. So what's going to happen is staff and kids, as I said, will all be screened prior to their entrance into the school, and they'll be screened across the school road. So it's literally, we're going to have tents and they're going to come in, almost like checking someone going into a concert, for example, but with social distancing in place through fencing and signs, and it's actually quite elaborate. Sanitization of venues will occur twice a day, full sanitization. All students have to have masks. We are waiting for the DBE to supply us with masks. We don't know when that will occur. They're also supposed to be providing us with visors as educators, and of course learners may take the choice, because there's also the health system, which the doctor will be able to explain to us about the carbon dioxide when we're in the mask, wearing a mask for too long. So of course visors will be the most effective and easiest, shall I say, accessory to PPE to use. All venues are going to be equipped with alcohol-based hand sanitizers. Teachers have to spray the child's hands when they're as they walk in with their mask on. Okay, and there's going to be soaps in every bathroom. And what we've had to do is now restructure the whole timetable. And this is something that is going to be a challenge for a lot of schools to do. We are restructuring the whole timetable because, as you know, from next week at state level, yes, at few private schools, they might incorporate more than one grade because of numbers. But at a state school, you're looking at about 200 plus minus learners per grade. Grade 12 starts in just over a week's time. I go back on Monday as management, as well as with other staff. We'll be splitting them into 2 groups, say 100 and 100 plus minus. Subjects which are being taught will have to be taught twice, because we can only limit learners to approximately 10 per class with social distancing implemented correctly. Break times will be done in different, different slots? Okay, and basically the big thing now is that the DBE and versus governing bodies. The DBE have a lovely list of actions that they have promised to undertake. Now, whether that is financially, whether they have the financial capacity to do that is another story. So the onus is a lot of governing bodies to ensure that the schools are fully ready, and that includes the preparation of having the entire school sanitized prior to the return next week. Now, what we have is another worry that parents would have, Mr. Goldstone, is that my child will go to registration and he will be in a class with 20 kids. And I'm worried about that because of the interactions. Well, what we've tried to do is we actually no longer having the usual registration. Your registration is in your first lesson. Therefore, you're not going to have more than 10 learners in that classroom. And your final registration of the day would be your last lesson. Very much like varsity style of schooling.
Okay.
Varsity style of academics. So that is how we're going. And obviously, the pros of returning to school is that we have thousands and thousands of matrics who have had no access to education in the last 9 weeks. And we know that. It's been documented. Carte Blanche elaborately explained it, that learners are in a position where they've got to decide, should I feed my tummy or should I buy data? Now, if you're in a position like Mr. Caldwell, well, then that's different. Your child, if he can be taught at home, that's fine. But there are some children who have no access to education. The only access is physically going to the school. And as we know, the DBE are not postponing any exams. In other words, they have cancelled June, but September trials and finals are still a go ahead. I've already received all the documents.
Okay.
Therefore, these kids need to be taught, and especially at the matric level. And I know the discussion can roll out just now. What do we do with the other grades? What do we do with the other grades? But let's roll with that. The matrics are what we, as an education sector of our country, need to be the most concerned about, because they are at the highest risk of destroying their lives if something doesn't actually happen in terms of getting them education.
Yes. Okay, Elton. Dr. Kubeka, let me bring in at this point. Elton kind of laying out for us there what the plan is from the Department of Education or Department of Basic Education, how they plan to bring in. Dr. Kubeka, if you can just tell us, for parents who are listening to this and wondering, well, if the school's doing that, what can I do as a parent? How can I best protect my child as a parent? What advice would you offer?
So thank you, Kevin. So I would say, if I were to talk from a doctor and a parent point of view, I would say you want to send a healthy child to the school. So it begins with making sure that your child is actually healthy, so that you don't endanger the other kids that are attending school. So parents should make sure that the kids are actually not symptomatic, not a risk to other kids. And then when you want to send your child to school, the issue now is we in going into winter, it's flu season. We will have sick kids in a way. We'll have kids who have a common cold. So making sure that they've received a flu vaccine, if you believe in flu vaccines, before they go to school, would be one thing that I advocate for. Making sure they have a healthy diet. So kids should be healthy, getting a balanced diet in terms of fruits and vegetables, and making sure that your child goes then prepared for the unknown, because they should know that there is coronavirus. So I think if you give your child a sanitizer to take home with, making sure that they go home and they go to school with a mask on, having a clean mask that hasn't been used, the previous day and not washed, so they go home. They go to school with a clean mask. So I think parents need to prepare their kids to go to an unknown environment so that they are protected, but making sure that the kids are actually not a hazard to other kids. So if the parents themselves have recently been sick and haven't been screened for coronavirus, they should make sure that they themselves have also been screened before they send their kids off to school. And again, I think the main thing for from my side would be, you want to send a healthy child. So make sure if you want to use supplements, there is supplements that they use, vitamin C supplements that can help with preventing infections like your common colds, basically.
Okay, thanks. Dr. Sohail, maybe to bring you at this point, we know that infections are going up, but on the ground, or actually at the coalface of fighting the virus in hospitals, Are we seeing increased numbers? I know a few people that I know that work in medicine say a lot of hospitals are empty. What's the actual feeling from health practitioners who are dealing with it daily? So,
So I'm currently working a bit in private, but I've got a lot of friends that are in government sector as well. And from the private sector, you know, they're seeing a large dwindling of the numbers, particularly in the emergency unit, because a lot of the cases are being screened, tested, and then sent home. We're not seeing as many severe cases. There are a few severe cases that do require ventilation that are being sent to government facilities. But generally, I think the government's been doing a good job in giving us doctors a very well-deserved rest before what's expected to come as the lockdown is lifted.
Craig, if I'm going to bring you back in as a parent, you've heard Alton explain some of the plans, and quite extensive plans there Alton's explained, and then Dr. Sibusiso Kubeka giving us a bit of an outline of what parents should do. As a parent, do you feel a little bit more informed, or do you still feel the fact that going to school one day a week just nullifies everything, every other plan, because what's the point of one day a week?
You know, Carvin, you've got to understand, I understand completely about the matrics, but like, if I look at it from my point, our one daughter goes to a farm school, so it's a relatively poor school, okay, as opposed to our other daughter goes to quite an affluent school. Who's to say that the one school is not going to be sanitized better than the other? And if I've got to teach my child for 4 days at home, why can I not just do it for 5 days and then eliminate the risk factor altogether? I completely understand about matric. I understand that the thing, but you tell me how my 5-year-old is going to be taught how to do social distancing and keeping the mask on and not trying to like take a Mikey's mask and that kind of stuff. So from my point of view, I still stand by what I say. If I've got to educate my child at home for 4 days of the week, I'd rather take the risk and just let her stay at home for 5 days. And at the end of the day, I think my kids are young enough. If they have to repeat the year, then so be it as well. But I'd rather that I've got their safety first.
Alton, if I can just bring in on that. Let's say, for example, parents like Craig feel that I'd rather keep my kids at home this year. They're not going to go back. We can risk this year. What does that do to the education system as it stands if you have some kids who continue and some who don't and stay back, and then the following year you have a big group maybe in grade 9 or whatever? Is that something that is a concern at all? Is that if you have people staying back and they repeat, then they clog up for the next group coming through that went through?
Look, what Craig said there is 100% plausible statement. You know, your child is your first worry as a parent, especially those parents whose children have underlying conditions, commodities as they call it. We don't want to put them at risk. And the idea is that what should be able to happen is that the education, or should I say the teaching, should be available through even simple means like WhatsApp voice notes. What my particular institution is going to do is that those learners who are there, right, will obviously partake in the lesson, and then those who don't want to be there, they have that democratic right. And that has actually been outlined by the DVE, because as you saw last week, there was a lot of controversy. Do I send my child back or don't I? You have that right to stay at home. I can't comment on what's going to happen later on with the examinations. We haven't got that far yet. But for example, where I am, we are going to live stream, just like what we're doing now, my lesson. So if you're at home, provided you've got the Wi-Fi, so obviously there's those financial issues involved, you can watch the lesson. When I've been teaching over these last 8 weeks, I have been using a variety of platforms, and I've actually been focusing on WhatsApp because it caters for those who don't have the financial capacity to have Wi-Fi or data and thus use platforms like MS Teams, Google Classrooms, and Moodle. So simple things like voice notes, Q&As even on WhatsApp, and have been actually quite fruitful. And I think it's also needs to be taken into account that one needs to realize that we're in a society of mass diversity, and we need to try our best as an education sector not neglect, marginalize, or isolate any child. And as you know, with our socio-economic conditions, that becomes very, very hard. There's some that can afford data or Wi-Fi and others that can't. And that's been the biggest trick. What we will probably end up doing later on, although it's not confirmed, there will probably be drop-off zones and pick-up zones of actual physical work material that have been printed out.
Yeah.
And then the child will be able to WhatsApp the teacher and ask any queries. So
Okay.
we, you know, as we all know, ladies and gentlemen, it's called the novel coronavirus for a reason, because we've never experienced it before. We've never experienced it before. And like the doctors on the panel, you know, the advice we can only progress and innovate and adapt when we know more and more and more as we go along. But at the same time, not neglecting the health of our learners and our teachers for that matter.
Okay, let me just bring in Dr. Kubeka. Dr. Kubeka, one of the issues coming up here is obviously comorbidities, people with underlying conditions of any sort.
Yes.
When parents have comorbidities or they have children with comorbidities, what is the best way for them to approach a situation of sending their kids back to school?
Well, Kevin, I think there's data that's come out from the countries that have already been through the peak of the coronavirus, and they've clearly shown that the comorbidities are one risk factor for severe disease.
Yeah.
So if there is comorbidities either with the child or with the parents, and I would strongly suggest that the child doesn't go into these high risk situations, because the current, I think the department is talking about cocooning these kids who have comorbidities so that they don't get as much exposure to coronavirus when they do go back to school. But I think there should be an element of caution in terms of these kids with comorbidities, because they are the ones who are likely to have severe disease, and with that they are the ones who are likely to need hospitalization. Because what we've been seeing currently, actually, with the kids, is that the ones who are above 5 years up to 18 years, that's those are the ones who actually get the bulk of the infections when you're talking about children, versus the ones who are below 5 years. So the ones between 5 and 18, which is probably will be the group that actually goes back to school, those are the ones who are likely to get infection. But they're actually the ones who are less likely to get severe disease. So a bulk of them actually becomes either mildly symptomatic or asymptomatic. So the ones who will actually who are likely to get moderate to severe disease are the ones who are below 5 years. The data has shown from the countries that have already been through the peak. So the kids who are likely to have severe disease, mild to moderate severe or severe disease, are the ones who are below 5 years. So those ones, I think, definitely they're not in the talking at the moment. So talking about the ones who are likely to go back to school, with those ones, they are less likely to become severe. But we know that the ones who will likely become severe in terms of infection or showing any symptoms are the ones who are having comorbid conditions. So I would say the ones who are having comorbid conditions, we definitely need to take caution with those ones. So either they join through other platforms and not actually attending physically in terms of going to school.
Thanks.
But it's my opinion.
Okay, cool. So Hale, maybe you can just wrap it up for us. People who are just concerned in general, so like someone like myself, for example, as a parent, if you're unsure about your own health and you're not sure if you should be checked for COVID-19, if you, what are the things that we should be looking for as parents before we send our children into school? One of the questions I got back from the school before sending my son is, was your son ever in contact with anyone who had COVID-19? Now, I'm not sure if they mean while the person had it or if they had it previously. So just so, El, if you could just wrap it up for us, and if people are a bit concerned about their own health, what can they do?
So I think a lot of the screening that's taking place currently is slightly outdated. Even if you go to any tertiary institution and stuff, there's still some of the questions that they still ask you: have you traveled in the last month? And obviously, no one's traveled in the last month. But look, just in general, I'd say if your child is experiencing any flu-like symptoms, or you have started to develop symptoms yourself, it's probably best not to send your child to school. Your child might be at risk. If you've got comorbidities and you've got children that don't have any comorbidities, sending them to school might pose a risk to you or anyone else in your family, elderly people, if you live with your grandparents or things like that, that might be an issue. But I would say, from what Elton is saying, a lot of the schools are taking as best a precaution as they can. We do know and we are expecting infection rates to rise as the lockdown lifts. And I think it's inevitable. We are going to see infection. People are going to become ill from this thing. And our schooling, our education, our economy needs to restart. And we've just got to take the best possible precautions that we can and get back to normal life in a safe, equitable manner.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sale. So there you have it, our conversation with our parents, school teacher Elton, and our doctors, Dr. Kubeka, Dr. Sohail. What are you going to do? What are you going to do as a parent? That's going to be quite interesting over the next few weeks. Those of us who will take the risk and send our kids back to school, we hope for the best. And those of you who are not, I don't think anyone should feel ashamed for not taking that leap, because definitely the priority is the health and safety of our families. Thank you for listening to COVID Conversations. Thank you to all our guests for the contribution. I know it's appreciated by people out there who are looking for clear information and accurate information. And that's it from me, Carvin H. Goldstone, and the team here. Good night.